President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi holds several meetings on the sidelines of COP28 in Dubai. Egyptian expats continue voting in 2024 presidential elections for the second day. Renewed Gaza fighting stretches into second day after Israel-Hamas truce collapses. Welcome back. Now the details. On the sidelines of the COP28 in Dubai, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi held meetings with Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda as well as the Armenian President Vagan Khachituryan as he stressed the necessity of boosting cooperation. The details in this report.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said he welcomes the activity of a number of Lithuanian companies in Egypt and said he was looking forward to boosting cooperation with Lithuania in different fields. This comes during his meeting with Lithuania's President Gitanas Nausėda on the sidelines of the UN Conference of the Parties COP28 in Dubai. The meeting witnessed an exchange keenness on boosting bilateral relations in addition to the continuation of coordination regarding political files of mutual concern. Meeting also tackled a number of regional challenges facing African and European countries, on top of them illegal migration and terrorism. Meeting also discussed developments in the Gaza Strip in addition to the Russian-Ukrainian crisis and its repercussions on the global economy. In another meeting on the sidelines of COP28, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi agreed with the Armenian President Vagan Khachituryan on the necessity of boosting current efforts to push cooperation between the two countries, especially in the fields of tourism, culture, trade, economy and security. Two leaders also underscored the special historical ties between Egypt and Armenia on the official and popular fronts. Meeting witnessed discussions of the most prominent regional developments of mutual concern in the Middle East and Southern Caucasus.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met with the Tanzanian President Samia Hassan on the sidelines of the COP28. The meeting tackled means of boosting bilateral ties in different levels, especially regarding Egyptian investments in Tanzania and technical cooperation, in addition to trading cadres in different fields. The meeting touched on Egypt's participation in the Tanzanian dam project to generate electricity. President el-Sisi stressed he was following up the stages of the project to guarantee achieving the best performance according to international standards. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi also met with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, where the two sides discussed boosting joint strategic cooperation in all fronts. The meeting witnessed a consensus on a number of regional and international files of common concern, especially the latest developments of the situation in the Gaza Strip. President el-Sisi reviewed the outcomes of the intensive contacts and efforts made by Egypt for an immediate ceasefire and restoration of calmness and protection of civilians. For her part, Meloni voiced her country's appreciation for the Egyptian vital role in pushing forward the peace process in the region, which was embodied in its hosting of the Cairo Conference for Peace. Meanwhile, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris reviewed the development in the regional situation, especially in the Gaza Strip, where the American side presented its vision during the meeting. Harris conveyed the greetings of U.S. President Joe Biden to President el-Sisi and expressed her country's aspiration for more coordination in the upcoming period. Governments have lined up a slew of energy announcements on Saturday at the UN Climate Summit of pressure to warming emissions. More than 20 nations have signed a declaration on Saturday on nuclear power capacity by 2050, with U.S. climate envoy John Kerry saying the world could not get to net without building new reactors. The declaration signed by France, Belgium, Britain and South Korea also commits countries to taking action to mobilize investment for the sector. The United States, the UAE and China are also expected to make announcements tied to raising more finance towards the effort. Getting the deal into the final UN Climate Summit decision would require consensus among the nearly 200 countries present. Egyptians abroad continue voting in the 2024 presidential elections on Saturday. Eligible voters in 121 countries, 137 embassies and consulates are casting their ballots in the elections before voters at home head to the polls from December 10th to 12th. Earlier, the National Election Authority's Central Operation Room formed to monitor Egyptian expats voting in the presidential election started their work since Thursday night to coincide with the beginning of ballot casting in New Zealand. The authority asserted it would hold continuous contact with Egyptian embassies and consulates abroad to follow up with the voting process. Meanwhile, the operation rooms of presidential candidates also began monitoring the vote since it kicked off in New Zealand and Australia. In related news, the Egyptian embassy in Paris witnessed a surge in the turnout of the Egyptian community as they cast their votes in the second day of voting for Egyptians abroad, which will last till Sunday. Meanwhile, Egyptians in Mauritania, Britain, Ireland, Ukraine, Equatorial Guinea and Cote d'Ivoire participated in the voting. Voting also continued in the embassies of Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Italy, Germany and Austria. The heads of Egyptian diplomatic missions abroad said the voting process was going smoothly at all polling stations. In a virtual meeting with the heads of diplomatic missions in the U.S., Mexico, Canada, Chad, Venezuela and other countries, Executive Director of the National Elections Authority, the NEA, Ahmed bin Dari, said the authority was keen to monitor the voting process and receive any observations to be addressed immediately. The electoral campaign of the presidential candidate Abdel Fattah el-Sisi continues its activities for the second day to follow up on the presidential elections 2024 for Egyptians abroad that kicked off on Friday and are to continue till the 3rd of December. Campaign's operation chamber eyed a huge turnout of Egyptian expatriates worldwide in voting in its first day until the moment on the second day, showing Egyptians' feelings of national duty. It also posted photos of the voter turnout on the official page of the presidential candidate el-Sisi. Also, the electoral campaign of presidential candidate Farid Zahran continued their activities on following up voting of Egyptian expatriates through their representatives at different polling stations worldwide. The operation chamber of the campaign witnessed a high turnout of Egyptian nationals abroad and urged all Egyptians to cast their votes as a patriotic duty. Meanwhile, the campaign of the presidential candidate Abdessanad Yamema held a conference in Cairo to present its electoral program to adopt liberal thinking of Al-Wafd Party and is keen to put the Egyptian citizens on top of the presidential candidate's priority. Dr. Abdessanad Yamema, head of Al-Wafd Party, stressed that education and health have the biggest part of the electoral program's attention due to their connection with citizens and their economic, social and health conditions. Also, the campaign of the presidential candidate Hazem Omar follows up the developments of the voting in the presidential elections 2024 abroad. Campaign also followed out through its central chamber of the Republican People's Party, which was formed to follow the voting since the start of the presidential race through its different representatives. Campaign reported a high turn in Egyptian worldwide. Egypt and subsequent strikes and militias targeting the Gaza. Statement released by the Foreign Ministry said the resurgence of Israeli strikes has resulted in civilian casualties amongst Palestinians, signifying a grave setback and a disregard by Israeli authorities. The efforts aimed to preserve the lives and facilitate the urgent delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza's population. Egypt reiterated its warnings against the dangers posed by the extreme actions in southern Gaza and denounced Israeli officials' encouragement of displacing Palestinians beyond Gaza's borders. Cairo also urged influential entities and relevant UN agencies, especially the Security Council, to fulfill their duties of guarding civilians in Gaza and to stop any plans compelling them to be displaced from their homeland. Meanwhile, the Israeli aggression continued